Good morning, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Love and Light, or the Light and Love, should I say, Transformational Tarot Summit, brought to you by David Locopo even, oh dear me, of the Light and Love Tarot Reading Festival in Montreal, and myself, Tiffany Crosara, of the Transformational Truth of Tarot. We both have the same aim, which is to promote tarot as a use for self-development, healing, enlightenment, rather than the fortune-telling way that it is often seen. Therefore, we decided to get together with the speakers that are at David's Light and Love Tarot Reading Festival in Montreal in September and bring some of that knowledge to you. So thankfully, because of the speakers, and because of the vision, we have brought these free classes to you. Today we have Jean, or is it Jean? Is it Jean or Jean?
Jean.
Thank you, Jean. Jean Fiorini. Am I saying that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's right.
I'm on the hermit today, so I'm overanalyzing my language. It's going to be interesting. So we have Jean Fiorini with us today, and Jean is a very interesting person. I already thought she was a very interesting person before I found her comedy sketches on YouTube today. And I love that, Jean, because I think, tarot, particularly when we major in relationship stuff, it can get a bit heavy or a bit serious. And I can really see that you have the humorous side and you appreciate the humorous side and bringing that light and love into it, which really resonates with me. It's very much about not forgetting that we're on the fool's journey and that is where the wisdom comes from. So I'm really looking forward to hearing about what Jean has to say today. But firstly, just so you know, if you have any questions, David is also moderating, so you can put them in at any time and he will check over the comments and actually help to make sure that they're all going to come through safely, your questions for Jean at the end. Also at the end, if you stay right to the end, you'll also get a little bundle from me that actually complements with what Jean is going to do today. So what Jean is going to do today is take you through some spreads on how to get relationship clarity. And if you stay right to the end, you will also get my intuitives guide from going from isolation to intimacy, and a bonus class on how tarot can help your relationships be harmonious. Not only that, as if that wasn't enough, but we also have offers for you. So there'll be an offer from Jean of 15 Canadian dollars off of a relationship clarity reading. And for those of you in the UK, it's great value. So, really do stay for that. And also, of course, David has 20% off of the conference for you. And I also have one place left on my Canadian conference in terms of the offer available, which is a solo room. If you buy that, you get the ticket to the conference for free. Okay, so it's great to see that there's a lot of you here saying hello and saying where you're from. That's fantastic. I will leave you in David's good hands and I will come back to your comments at the end that he's flagged up for us. And I'm going to turn my attention to Jean now. So hi, Jean. Thank you very much for being here today. You're from somewhere called Maine, right?
Yes, somewhere called Maine. Sometimes it feels like that. Yeah, Maine is on the upper northeast coast of the United States.
Okay.
And it's beautiful in the summer.
Oh, yeah. Lovely.
It's a place to be in the summer, yeah.
How far away is it from Canada?
Well, when I go to Montreal, I think it's going to take 5 hours. So some of Maine is adjunct to Canada, but where I live is down in the south of Maine. Sounds tropical, but it's not. So some Mainers are, you could look over to Canada, but that's not where I live.
And just to let people know, with the reading offer that you've got on, you do readings like this as well, so it's open to everyone. That's great to know. Fantastic.
Skype, Zoom, Messenger is okay, but really Zoom is the best because they can record the session. I don't know if you or any of the viewers have used Zoom, but it's a good connection and they can record. So whatever we talk about, they can refer to back later. So that's a great technology.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's brilliant. And thanks to this technology, we have you here in light and love, in your lovely brightness today.
Oh my goodness, I know. I'd like to kind of tone that down, but I don't know how, so we'll let it go. We'll let it go.
It's your golden aura.
Yeah, it's very bright, I
know. Okay, so let's kick this off by, if you'd like to tell us a little bit about how tarot came into your life, because I'm always fascinated by that. I watched an interview with you earlier, and as the lady said, you don't get it at school as an option. It's not something that's seen as a career as such. So how did tarot happen to you, Jean?
I think it was David who was referring to the dark night of the soul. Which I also heard somebody recently say, it's really not the dark night of the soul, it's the dark night of the personality. The soul is fine, the personality is freaking out and breaking down. So I was in one of those phases. And before that, really, I didn't have any tendencies toward metaphysical things, or I wasn't particularly interested in tarot or astrology or any of this business. I do have a 12th house Cancer moon. So I think that there's always been an interest in what's going on under the surface, what's really going on here. So when I had gotten divorced in 1988, and in 1990, let me just say that a couple of weeks ago, somebody was talking about the numerology.
Yes, Tara Green. Yes.
The birth numerology. And so the year cycle I was in when I got divorced was Justice, which is appropriate. I didn't realize that at the time. I looked back on it and saw that that was the case. But the year that my psyche started to move and sort of break down my personality was a death. I was in a 13 cycle. As I learned later. So I imagine people experience that experience differently, but for me, it was my dream life just got huge. And I felt like my outer life was not my real life, but that whatever was going on in my dream life was my real life, and that's where the action was. And I was just like outside of myself. I looked in the mirror, I didn't know who I was,
Amazing.
And so during that time, a friend of mine had a tarot deck, and Mary Greer's Tarot for Yourself workbook, classic workbook. So this is 1990. And she's reading cards for people at the kitchen table, and people are crying. And I thought, oh, here's something that's telling the truth. Here's something that's real. Here's something that just gets right to it without all the crap, that is around conversations. It's like, here's a main line to a genuine and an authentic conversation. I want to learn more about that. So that was essentially how it started for me. I do have a background in art and a little bit of psychology. So tarot and its symbols and its archetypes and its sense of cycles and personal development fit really well with those things.
For sure.
So I got Mary Greer's Tarot for Yourself book and an Aquarian tarot deck, and also Sally Nichols's Jung and Tarot, which is not light reading. I don't know if you've ever read that book.
No, but I think I know the one you mean. It's about that big and it's white. Yeah. Has it got the tarot and Marseille on the front, I think.
Yep, that's right. That's right.
Heavy duty stuff.
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
book's been around since I think 1988. That one was published. So, I took the books that were available at the time, which still I think are some of the best classic, 78
Mm,
Degrees of Wisdom is another
yeah,
one.
absolutely.
It's
Rachel
like
Pollock.
those
Yeah.
books have been written,
Mm, mm-hmm.
So, one thing led to another, and I thought, well, I can't make a living reading tarot, so I'll be a counselor.
Right.
So I took 2 years of psychosynthesis training. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's anything that people know of in the UK, but
Yes, we have a centre
where,
over here, but it would be good if you could let us know a little bit about what that is anyway, would be good. Yeah.
yeah. So psychosynthesis, it's spelled just how it sounds. PSYCHO synthesis. So if
Mm-hmm.
people want to Google it or whatever, um, it's a spiritual based holistic method of counseling, which takes the personality but also the voice of the soul into consideration as a person moves through their life. So it's got it's called bifocal vision. And when you work with somebody, you listen to what the personality says, but you also listen to the voice of the soul. So there's that 12th house Cancer moon thing. It's like, okay, I hear you said this, but what I also heard is this.
Mm.
So psychosynthesis fit really well for me in terms of my own, way of looking at the world and what I feel is important. And, I'm a big noun for me is authenticity. I think, authenticity is such a hard thing to do and such an important thing to do for every individual. And so psychosynthesis really stresses the value of each individual. And Jung would call it self-actualization,
Mm.
to become the fullest version of who you are, not who other people think you should be or who you thought you should be when you were 14 or, what your partner thinks you ought to be.
Mm.
Yeah. So, it's really good work. And so I did a couple of years of psychosynthesis. And, that that method of working with people and the tarot, you could see it's just meshes
Wow.
perfectly.
I can imagine, yeah.
So instead of being pardon me?
I can imagine. Yeah. I'm getting tingles as I'm
Yeah.
listening to you. So
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, like woo.
so yeah, it all connects to the same underground stream. It tarot, psychosynthesis, other things too. But for me, it was again a main line to that root truth or that authentic truth for people. And when I can do that in a reading, so eventually what happened was I didn't become a counselor. I didn't become a counselor who used tarot. I became a tarot reader who uses psychosynthesis.
Sure. Yeah.
So the other thing that was synchronistic and kind of even still, I never really imagined that I would be reading cards for a living. I mean, it's crazy. Who does that?
Who does that?
So you got to be crazy.
Indeed.
Um, I was encouraged by my therapist to get serious about it. And, I think he heard the voice of authenticity in me when I was talking about it. So he said, you need to make up a business card. So I made up business cards. I stuck a few they were rudimentary. This is 1990. This is no Vistaprint work of art,
Mm-hmm.
I put them up in coffee shops around town in Portland, Maine. And somebody from the newspaper saw it and did a feature article in the Sunday paper on me. And that was just the start of my business.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it was, that was like the universe or whatever. It's just saying, okay, here's a track.
I'm tingling again. That's for the third time.
You can be on that or you can not be on that, but here it is. So that, as you know, it's not an easy thing to take on. But I don't know if you're familiar with the Aquarian Tarot.
Yes. Not massively, but I do remember it's quite nice from what I remember in terms of its pictures being quite light and nice from what I remember. Yeah, I don't have the deck. It's not something that I've worked with, but it's something that I'm aware of.
Yeah. The Queen of Cups in that card is looking directly at the person who's holding the card, and she's like, I got a beat on you, and you know what you need to do. You better get out there and do it. So that card kept kind of coming up.
Yeah.
And so every time I see Queen of Cups, particularly in that deck, it's like, okay, get back on track. I know this is hard, but just keep, this is what you need to do. So, you get those, and, the tingles are part of the confirmation, that, yes, I tried to do other things, but I didn't last very long. So,
no.
So that was 1991, almost 30 years ago.
And then you wrote a book. When did you write your book?
Well, I wrote the Tarot Spreads and Layouts book in 2010, but I did have an earlier book that I self-published. And I went to Schiffer Publishing and said, would you be interested in picking that up? And they said, no, but we need a Spreads and Layouts book. Can you write one of those? I'm like, sure, I guess I can. So that's when I did write the Tarot Spreads and Layouts book.
Okay, and is the layout 2010, and is the layout that you're going to use a bit later today in that book as well?
Yes.
Fantastic, yes. Jean. Awesome.
Yes.
Can we fast forward now to how your connection happened with David and how you come to be speaking at the conference in September, please?
He contacted me last year about attending the first
Light
festival.
Yeah.
Yes. And I was going to be in England doing a trip and some tarot work then, and so I wasn't able to participate. And then I thought, well, okay, that's that. But I think October came, and he's on my email. What do you think about next year? I'm like, okay, sure.
Awesome. And so the trip that you were taking in England last year, did that happen to be just down the road from me? Because you said something about
we were in Bath. I've been to Bath a couple of times. Love it there. It's so beautiful. I love that city. I love Wells also. It's very, those are cities I could live in. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you're not, that's an annual thing you do. You take pilgrimage and to England. Yeah. But you won't be doing that this year because you're coming to the conference. Is that right?
I'm coming to the conference in September, but then going to Ireland with a group in October.
Wow, wonderful, awesome.
So, it's a wonderful way to blend the wisdom of the tarot with the power of the landscape over there.
Of the Celts, that's what it is.
I don't know what it is, but the dirt is different. The land is different. Maine is beautiful, and it does have an old history, but not like that. I'm really just captivated with the whole thing over there.
Yeah, over here we have the stone circles, and I have a retreat in Cornwall, and there's 500 Bronze Age megaliths in the space of 8 miles. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I get what you mean. But back to the conference. So what is it you're going to be talking to us about with the conference, and then today, please, Jean?
Okay, so in the conference, I toyed around with different things to talk about. And then I thought, well, I'll talk about something that isn't exactly how to work with cards, but more about the motivation about tarot. So the topic of my talk at the conference is the what and the why of tarot.
The what and the why
Um,
of tarot.
the
Okay.
what and the why of tarot. And everybody's going to have a little bit of a unique response to what that is for them. So when you say to somebody, oh, you read tarot or you're interested in tarot, what's that about for you? Sometimes somebody might say, I'm called to it, or I really see how it's useful for people. Or maybe my grandmother and my mother were readers, and so I was familiar with it, and I just sort of fell into it. So all those are step one. But what we're going to do at the festival is go a little bit deeper and have people come up with their personal and unique definition about what tarot is for them, why it's important, what they perceive their role to be as a reader. There's lots of ways to perceive yourself as a reader,
For sure.
So, and I don't know that there isn't any wrong way of perceiving that, but when you get clear about what you see your role, then you can really step into that role more authentically, more intentionally, and do better work, do clearer work when you know who you are.
Yes, I'm loving that. Yeah, it's the self-actualization again, isn't it? And the authenticity and knowing your big why, you're doing what you're doing. When you have that so clear in your head, that's when everything can totally take off. So it sounds like, what you're doing at the Light and Love Tarot Reading Festival, ACA conference, I've been calling it, is is an amazing brick of foundation that can really propel people forward on who they are, because we're called tarot readers, but actually, like you say, it's about finding out what your unique gift is in that and bringing it out. Like, for instance, I'm an inner transformation specialist or transformational tarot teacher or mentor, so it's like that's taken a long time to realize who I am and where I am in that, and that I'm not really a tarot reader. I hardly ever do readings these days. But, when society is shown that it's just that, it's very hard to find your own truth. I've been through that myself. So I'm really passionate about what you're doing at the Light and Love Tarot Reading Festival, because it feels like it's a massively important piece to really get in for people.
You use the word foundation, and I think that that's a good one. To start with that sense of where we stand with it, and then well, here's this method, or here's this deck, or here's this perspective that you can come from. All these other things.
Yeah,
foundation. Yeah.
Great.
So we'll have exercises and a worksheet, if you want to call it, to kind of go through certain things and have people get real clear about their own version of why they do it, what's important to them about it, the value of it, all of that. Yeah.
Brilliant.
So
I'll be there, because I think it's a work in progress all the time, isn't it? Not just for those that are starting out, but it's just to keep reviewing as you keep changing, keep growing. It's an ongoing thing. Wonderful. Okay. And so you're going to warm us up even more with that today, with your topic, which is relationship. What is going on?
Right.
Yes.
What is going on? Okay. So let's start with the idea about layouts. I was happy to have the opportunity to write the Tarot Spreads and Layouts book, because I've always been really frustrated with these massive, cumbersome 20 card spreads. I'm not saying they're bad. I just have, one of my little mantras as a teacher is you don't need a lot of cards to get good information. So in the Spreads and Layouts book, I think the spread with the largest number of cards might have 8 cards. But most of them are simple. It's more like methods exactly than a layout. So what we're going to do today is a really simple way to address any relationship. So part of the thing I like about this layout is, well, first of all, to get clear information from your cards, you don't need a big fancy layout. You just need a clear question.
Yeah.
That's what I, okay? Mm-hmm. And so sometimes my work as a reader would be listening to what the person says and trying to discern, or trying to get them to discern, what is it you really want to know? Well, I hear that you've got a relationship issue, but what is it you really want to know? So if we can get clear about that, then we can figure out what questions to ask. So a clear intention or a clear question is really step one in terms of getting clear information from your cards, or information that you can work with. So really all a layout is setting an intention. Mm-hmm. So a layout, you know, let's say past, present, future. Past, I'm intending or saying to myself and to the process that the card that I place here is going to tell me something about the past. Okay, so you've set your intention when you use a certain layout. But the thing that's kind of cool about this is that you don't even really, if you're going to use this method, you don't even have to ask a question, because what we're working with is relationship dynamics.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to flip we ready to look at the layout?
Yes. And just to say also that at some point we've got Dom. So just stand on standby, Dom, because you'll be coming through as a volunteer to be read by Jean. So just to let you know to be on standby for that. Okay. Yeah, please do flip your screen, Jean.
Okay, flip your screen, Jean. Okay, so that way people can see what I'm doing here. All right, so you can use this layout with any relationship. It could be between you and a partner. It could be between you and a child, your child or a child. It could be between you and your sister or your friend. Doesn't really matter. This is just going to show us relationship dynamics. So I'm going to just do like a little test thing. This is an artificial. I'm not reading for anything in particular. I'm just going to show you how it works, and then we'll do the reading for Dom.
Okay, great.
So
just to let you know, Jean, the screen is a bit blurry. So if you can just speak clearly about the cards, and maybe also hold them up to the screen before you put them on the table. I think that will help. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So it's a 5-card layout, and we start with, I always like to start by pulling 2 cards for the person who is the querent, the person who's being read. So I'm going to say this is...
Oh, I see. You do it randomly. So it's not like a significator where you pull one on purpose.
No.
You do it randomly.
No. So okay. I like to, yeah, and I like to do this, you know, smush method. Okay. So you can get your cards in the layout any way that works for you, but I like the, you know, I think this one's for me and this one's for me. Okay, so you can get your cards into the pattern any way you want. And I like to have, you know, it can't work obviously in this situation, but when you're sitting across from somebody, I like to have them pull the cards. Because it's one kind of subtle way of letting them know that they have power and that they have choice. And, you know, so my job is to read the cards, but if they've pulled the cards, there's some kind of, again, underlying notion there that they know what they need.
For sure.
Or they know what they need to hear, something like that.
Yeah.
So this is going to be essentially person number 1. So this is going to be, let's just say person number 1. And then you pick 2 cards for the other person.
Okay. For the other relationship. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Right.
The other person.
So now, yes. So before we look at that, let me just say a few things. This is how this person So it's going to show us a picture. This is how this person relates in particular to this person.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't just the general vibe of this person. This is what they're doing in regards to this person.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and likewise going this way. So here's, let's say my energy, here's the other energy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I got you. Yeah.
So also to make the point, I like to leave cards face down until we get everything pulled, because we get distracted when we look at the pictures.
Mm.
Okay, so we leave the cards down. The fifth card is, what do I need to know about it? Not necessarily what should I do, although that might be indicated by what card we get, but what do I need to know about it? Mm-hmm. So person one, person two, and then kind of a guiding or helping or an extra little piece of information.
Can I ask,
do you have any questions before?
Yeah, and I'm lucky because I get to jump the queue. Can I ask why there's 2 cards per person?
You mean rather than 1?
Yeah, or 3 or 5.
Well,
why is there 2?
Yeah, partly it's about it's 2 rather than 3 or 5, just for simplicity. Mm-hmm. But there's 2 rather than 1 because we don't normally have a single attitude, intention, or energy. So these two might be very similar. It's sort of like the 2 cards in the middle of the Celtic layout.
Mm-hmm.
They're either going to support each other.
Yeah, and being crossed by and affected. Mm-hmm.
Right. So they're either going to work together or pull in different directions or have similar or different energy. And that tells you something when they're different. Like maybe a person's a little torn or has a little bit of, ambiguity about something. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they say the same thing. So that's important to see rather than just 1 card and 1 card. You could do, but let's just see what we get here. But I think it's a good question. I like to keep my helper cards simple, so that's why we just have 1 up here.
Okay, great.
Any other questions?
Well, the other thing is I'm wondering if it would be like the conscious and the unconscious as well. Is that a way to see it, or would you say that's complicating the issue? Because it might be that we consciously also have conflicting thoughts sometimes.
Well, I think that boils down to intention. If you want to say that's how I'm going to use this method, then you could have it be that way.
I see.
I like to see it more as the composite of the person's energy, working with this composite. And so we're going to look for, okay, are these people on the same page? Do they want the same thing? What are the elements that we see? Is somebody ready to go and somebody's holding back? What do we see here?
Okay.
So the other thing to kind of keep in mind is to say that this shows relationship dynamics without judgment. Just like, here's a picture of what it might look like, the energy that this person has working with the energy of this person and vice versa.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Great. So let's see what we have. Ooh. Okay. So person number 1 is holding this energy. Mm-hmm. Empress and Death.
Wow. No small thing there then.
Wow. Yes. Okay. So, interpretation here is going to be subjective. I'll say how they hit me just as a general example. Tiffany, you can say how they hit you.
Just to clarify, the subjective part is because I would say major arcana is quite difficult to pin down without a minor arcana. Is that what you mean by subjective?
Well, no, I just mean that my interpretation of this, because it's not a specific person that I'm reading for, it's just as an example, is going to be kind of off the top of my head and a little less let's say, real than as if I was, like when we do Dom's reading, I'm going to maybe be more specific about this.
Yep, thanks for clarifying. Great.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, major arcana here. So first of all, this person is in a pretty significant place in their life, number one, because of the major arcana. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The Empress being the mother card, the archetype of caretaker and nurturer, with the Death card might indicate that this person's kind of done being the caretaker and the nurturer. But, again, it's sort of a random pull, so we're not going to get too caught up in what this means. So in general, if this person's in a relationship, especially with the Death card, we might say, this person's in transition. They might be looking to be shifting their identities around a little bit, and might be a little unsettled. Got any thoughts, Tiffany, about how you might read those?
Pretty much the same. The Empress to me would say that, yeah, she's very much a caretaker in a relationship dynamic, and is very much, that's coming to an end. So I guess, again, it depends on the querent, doesn't it? If it was a mother, right, it might be empty nest syndrome, or if it's someone that's been married a long time and has been, the wife and the mother, and is like, I've had that time, I'm done with that, it's time for me now. And maybe the spouse doesn't really, it's like, oh, my wife's changing, and so all of those things come up again. Like you say, it depends on the actual query so much, doesn't it, really?
Right. But let's, just for the example here, what's more important is how does what this person's holding interact or interface with what this person is holding. Mm-hmm. So let's just see what we have. 8 of Pentacles, Knight of Cups. Can you see them in the screen?
Yeah, there? We can see that the Knight of Cups is reversed as well. Do you read reversed cards, Jean?
Well, I am going to read it reversed here because I like how it's aiming toward her.
Yeah.
If you go like this, then this is going off in another direction.
For sure.
So I'm going to leave it reversed. I like the implication there.
Mm-hmm. But that's come out accidental, or you actually purposely reversed?
No, that's just how I flipped them, which is whole part of the synchronicities or the quote accidents that happen in a reading,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so what might be, let's just put her aside for a minute. If we're just looking at this kind of energy, it's much more, it's minor arcana. This is much more flexible, fluid, making concrete effort, maybe someone who's extending themselves emotionally. This feels very grounded and gentle, this combination. Just in general. So if I put it with her, I think in this example, we see some compatibility. We see, okay, here's somebody who's maybe trying to bust out of an old way of being. And this person may or may not have an idea about how they want to manifest their life. This person is, with this Pentacle card, I would say being flexible, being open and grounded, and trying to work with things as they emerge, as things change in this relationship. Mm-hmm. So, you could talk about this for 15 or 20 minutes, which we're not going to do, but just to sort of make the point, okay, I always look for, okay, where's commonality here? Where might there be points of difference? Is the general vibe between the two of them compatible? So I would look at this Death and this 8 of Pentacles and feel like those are compatible energies. The Death wants change. The 8 of Pentacles says, okay, well, how about we do it this way? So, but this is much more practical. This is more personal for this person. but this
Mm.
person feels like they're willing to make their adjustments. And the sensitivity and the connectivity that both of these cards kind of require in their life, I think also is compatible. So, Tiffany, do you see anything in there that either looks like it might work well together, or that feels like a place of possible conflict?
I think I see both.
Okay, tell me where you see conflict or
Okay.
potential.
Well, because the Empress and Death are their major arcana, right? So to me,
Yeah.
that shows there's some powerful energy there. And with the other one, there's minor arcana. So first of all, I see a power imbalance, but I'm also
Yeah.
feeling that the Empress doesn't actually want all that power, with the Death card there as well. She doesn't actually want all that power. And I'm also feeling like the Knight of Cups, because he's reversed, doesn't want to be drained of all his power. I'm not saying he is, because we've got the Eight of Pentacles, but there is something there around the emotional power I'm feeling that is easily drained. So I think there's like, they're both coming from some past dynamics that actually they both want to change, but this relationship can either entrench the old patterns, or it's the chance to break them, but it might entrench them. And that's why I'm getting both, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can see that. And so if this was a reading for somebody who was sitting across from me, or, was for an actual person, of course, I would check in with them and say, if this is where the person being read, what do you think about that? Are you feeling this? Does this feel like an accurate representation of, what's going on for you?
Mm-hmm.
How do they see what's going on here? I think there's always going to be a place where there's harmony and a place where there's dissonance. But this is a great way just to look at it, with pictures and, to validate the energies, the different components. Okay, let's look at that. Interestingly, you get earth and water here. Nobody comes in with swords and wands.
Yeah.
So that's interesting too. You bring a sword and a wand into here, and you've got a whole different story.
Yeah, then you've got the air and the fire, right. But at the moment you've just got the earth with the Empress, and the Pentacles and the water with Death, which is Scorpio, and the Knight of Cups. Yeah, just clarifying people. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. So that's compatible too. And I see what you're saying about the difference in power between this and this, and this might eventually for her get annoying. It's like, stop trying to fix this. So that's why I like to have the conversation with the person. This enables us to bring certain dynamics again up on the surface, so that we can be talking about them in the context of the reading. But also why I like the what do I need to know about it card. So are we ready for this one?
For sure. Yeah.
Okay. Page of Pentacles.
Another Earth.
Another Earth card. Okay, so that is very interesting. So no swords, no wands. So when I see an absence of an element, I think it's not part of the problem or part of the solution. So we don't need to be thinking about this too much. We don't need to be over processing this too much. And we don't need to get into a battle of wills here either. I like the simplicity of this card as the what do I need to know about it. So to me, that Page of Pentacles says we really need a fresh start here. We've got to start on the ground. We've got to start at the base. Both, if that this relationship is wanting a fresh, brand new, there's the play on words, brand new field to be working in, to grow in. Page of
Great.
Pentacles. Now, maybe that's a new house. Maybe that's we move to a different city. Maybe that's we need to have a different way that we coexist. It could be sort of metaphorical, the Page of Pentacles. We got to change the schedule. We got to change the MO here a little bit. But I like how this kind of supports really both this and this.
Very
And
much,
says,
yeah.
well, change. Is there a new thing we can build here?
Yeah, that's the result of the change by the sounds of it, isn't it? A whole fresh new way of living, being, doing.
Yeah, and really, and the page might say, okay, to your point, Tiffany, about lapsing into old patterns, the page says, forget that. We gotta do new. Sometimes they think of Etch-a-Sketch. You know what Etch-a-Sketch is?
Yeah, I remember I think there might be a few younger viewers on that don't know what it was, so I'll just explain. It's like I guess it's like a really old version of the internet touch screen, except there was no like being linked to anyone else. I guess that's the only way you could draw with your fingertips, really, basically, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then when you were done with that picture, you turned the whole thing upside down and you gave it a shake and it disappeared.
Yeah.
Okay, so this says, give this a shake, start fresh, forget all this stuff back here, start fresh, see what happens.
So this really is the clarifying key of the whole spread, really, isn't it?
Well, it lets you know whether this is going to mesh together or not, and sometimes it gives you an idea of how to mesh it together or how to continue. Sometimes with relationships, we really see, it's done, it's dead, there's nothing. And so sometimes there isn't a next step kind of a card. I mean, we hold this card, but sometimes we see, you just got to walk away from this. That's not what we get here.
Well, I've got like 1,000 questions on this spread, but I'm feeling that really we need to bring Dom in now. We don't have time for everything, but yeah, it's like so much I want to ask about it. It's amazing, the simplicity, but the power of it is incredible. Sorry, what were you going to say?
That's really my point about you don't need a lot of cards to get good information and to get useful information. It's like if you're clear about a method or a layout and you ask a question, or if you have a certain intention, you can. And, as you said, we could have talked for a half an hour on all the ways those things fit together and bounced it off a real situation. And, fine-tuned. And, the other thing about layouts is, and methods, is that you can always expand on that if you want to. So you had the 5 cards, and maybe the querent has a question about, well, what's my best approach to this other person? We might draw a card for that. So you always can just build on it.
Absolutely. I totally love it. So we're just waiting for Dom to hopefully be able to come in as a presenter. Dom, I have just invited you as a presenter. So basically, I love that you're here, Dom. So Dom is saying that he's here, but that was as a attendee. So I've just invited you as a presenter. Can you just confirm, Dom, if you can? Great. Speak requests. Here we go. All right. So are you ready, Jean? Should we bring Dom in? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Dom? Are you there? It's quite funny that we've ended up with Dom, because your comedy sketch was very much about the word Dom. I noticed earlier, so you can have a look at that on YouTube.
Oh, dum dum. Yeah.
So, Dom, are you there? Ooh. Okay. So, okay. Well, whilst I'm waiting for Dom because I just clicked the request to speak from him, but I also sent Dom a come on. Ah, here he is. Hello, Dom. Okay, maybe it's going to take a little while for him to come up.
There it is.
He's coming. He's a-coming. Can you hear us? It might take a little while for him to work out how to speak. So, Dom,
Yeah.
Yay! Hello.
Hello, how are
this
you?
way round. Can you see me?
I made
You're
it.
not quite in Australia, and you're not quite in England.
Yeah.
Somewhere else in the world.
well, to be fair, the webcam asked me 3 times about my camera and microphone, and I was like, yes, I did. I said yes.
You said yes the magic number of times, 3
yes,
times.
it's like fairies. You have to make sure you say it 3 times.
Okay, and there's some fairy magic having some fun with you, obviously.
A little bit.
It.
A little
Okay.
bit. So we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, I will leave you in Jean's comfortable hands. I will take a back seat.
Okay.
Over to you two.
Okay. Well, thanks for your willingness to participate here. Froze up. Yeah.
Maybe if I turn my camera off. I'm going to turn my camera off and see if that helps. Okay? Oh, look, I've turned into David.
That's magic.
Funny. Or he's turned into me.
Okay,
Dom's gone. I think he's going to try and come back in. So
okay.
Dom does work in the technical field, so
all right then.
He should be able to work all of this out. So we were talking about your comedy YouTube. What is it called on YouTube? Your comedy sketch?
Well, I think it's just on my Tarot Queen 100 YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I don't have a separate channel for that. I just put it all up on. There's a couple comedy things on there, and I will give the credit where credit is due. So when I took the comedy class, of course, the teacher was very interested in somebody who reads cards because that there's a lot of fodder there for comedy. Mm-hmm. So he said, it doesn't matter. First of all, the bit about how many children do you have?
Mm-hmm. I love that. Yeah. So you're going to tell people, or you're going to keep them in suspense because you don't want to kill them.
Let's keep them in suspense. But let me say, I did not make that up. I heard that at a tarot conference, and I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah, it's
and
fantastic.
So when I took the tarot class, the comedy class, the teacher says, your audience doesn't care if you heard it at a conference. Just say it as if you said it. So I somewhere out there might be that person. It's like, wait a minute, I said that, and she did, and it was fabulous enough to copy. So I did. I stole it from her.
Well, I expect she's probably not the only one that said that.
Yeah, but it's a great reply to somebody who thinks that a tarot reader is a mind reader. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So do look that up on YouTube along with Jean's tarot tips, peeps. I'm going to come round to a few questions, and we'll just give Dom some time.
Okay.
I think what I might do is return him as an attendee, and then invite as a presenter again. That should help him. So I've just done that, and I'm going to. David's posted the link to your YouTube channel, so that's fantastic.
That's great.
And I'm just going to go down the bottom and start with the very first question that got flagged up by David, which is from Nancy. I'm hoping this goes into Ask a Question bucket. Yes. If there's time at the end, I would like to hear about how I keep saying Jean because that's the way it's spelled, but it's Jean. I will get it into my head. Jean handled her initial clients. Did she approach readings one way and then change to another way? It sounds like she was thrown into the deep end of the pool, what with a reporter writing about her so early in her career. You got anything to say about that, Jean?
It was a little overwhelming, but it really helped to have had the counselor training because I knew about boundaries. and I knew not to let people define what I was doing. Tried to anyway. It's hard when you want to please people. You want to feel like you're giving them their money's worth. But at the same time, I knew enough about working with people through the counselor training, and that really helped me a lot. I think that's one thing that if there was, tarot, how to be a tarot reader in school, that there could be a whole semester on boundaries and what's okay with clients and what isn't, and how do you watch out for them kind of reeling you into saying things that you don't, or even addressing things that you don't really want to address. You don't have to. So that was a really helpful thing.
Very true. I think there tends to be, especially when you're first starting out, the tendency to think that you have to read in the way that a person wants you to read, and that actually you have to work out who you are, what your offering is, and read for those people and hold the space. And basically,
there he is.
Great. Yay!
Sorry, that was
this way for me.
That was the beach ball of death. I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay, no worries. So how long are we going to have for this, Jean? Because it's 15 minutes.
Okay? 10 minutes.
10 minutes, perfect. Brilliant. Okay.
All right.
So the question I was asking is this for a current relationship or a relationship that I want?
Well, that's a good question. I think the method works better for a current relationship, because we might do something different, use a different method about a relationship that hasn't come into your life yet.
Okay, that's fine. So I have a friend at the moment who's an artist, and what I'm experiencing at the moment is it seems like because he's not able to create, like there's something that's slightly corrupting, and I'm finding it harder and harder to sort of engage with him.
Okay.
And it seems to be like we're moving at different paths, and I find it difficult to just like chuck people. I'm not someone that chucks people away, but at the same time, I'm very much aware that him being around in some way almost stymies my own progress, and I'm looking at how to, I'm looking at what's going on, and also how do I resolve that, or is there a way to resolve that?
Okay. So we'll stick with the the pattern that we worked with earlier. The 2 and the 2 and then the extra one. So these are yours. These are the other person. So we look at yours first, and here's your what do you need to know about it. There's that 8 of Pentacles.
Okay.
I don't know why this camera is like so close up. Okay, so we get 8 of Pentacles, 10 of Wands.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'll talk about them a little bit, and then I'll check in with you and you tell me what you think.
Okay.
So it's interesting. We saw this card in the example reading. This says to me that you've tried a lot. So again, remembering this is your dynamic with this person. This is this person's dynamic with you. This looks to me like you have tried a lot of different things, and you're getting tired. I've tried to make this adjustment. I've tried to bend to this. I've tried approaching it from this aspect. And, the 10 of Wands says, I might not really be wanting to jump through any more hoops here to try to get this to work.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's always useful to have people say, do you see anything in there that you want to comment on or ask about, or that seems relevant?
No, I mean it's interesting that for my own readings, I generally don't come up with pentacles. It's usually sort of cups. But it is interesting that 10 of Wands of almost doing too much seems indicative. And you're right. There is a part. The thing I'm very much aware of is that this person seems very active in getting in their own way and not able to either even at least see that or recognize that. And there's a part where I'm going, I'm not qualified to do this, and I don't know how to help you. And there's a part where as you that Ten of Wands is saying, it's exhausting, and I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
And you're not.
So when you say I tried to help, I tried this, I tried that, I tried all these different aspects, and nothing really seems to be popping through.
Yeah.
So let's just make the comment about the elements, and the numbers. You get an 8 and a 10, which indicates close to some resolution here, one way or the other. We're not at 1 and 2. And we get this practical card with an energy level card. So the energy level really low, even though we've tried a lot of different methods here.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see what this other person gets.
Okay.
World card, Lovers.
Okay.
Wow. See, so in this case, I'm gonna pick one more to help me with this Tower card. Holy cow! All right. So, first of all, totally different level of energy from you. World card with the Lovers. Does this person feel like? Let me just ask you this before I get into some of the specifics and the mechanics here. Does this person feel like you're going to be around no matter what?
I think there is an assumption that I'm going to be around no matter what, and I'm, to be honest, I'm feeling I don't want to say taken for granted, but there is sort of that aspect. Does that make sense? That I'm not, he is going through, there is going through a very challenging time, but also that challenging time has been made by them.
Yeah. Yeah, see, I would look at this and just be thinking about, okay, what's this relationship to you? I would look at this and say, I would guess that he feels like this relationship is locked in. It's like, we're together, we're partners, this is unbreakable.
Yeah.
But so, because I got something that really surprised me, and here's part of the creative control that we all have with readings. I pulled another one to help me, and I get the Tower card. I do think he was going to be shocked if you make a change here.
Yeah.
I'm not saying do it or don't do it. I'm just saying that that the big awakening here is probably part of his process, and maybe, like you say, awakening to his responsibilities, or for getting himself into the whatever challenging situation he's in, could be part of this Tower card.
Yeah.
But I would look at this, if this was somebody I was in a relationship with, it's like I'm the only one who's got the problem here, and that doesn't mean that he's correct. I just look at this and say he just assumes that this is not that this relationship is a lock.
Yeah.
And you're getting tired. Let's take a look. Go ahead.
Well, what I find interesting with that is it seems to be clear that on his side basically there's no problem, and I'm the one who's experiencing the difficulty.
Right.
So it's almost like a me thing, not him thing.
Well, that's how he would see it.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that's not true for you. It just means that his energy is Dom and I are together. Then not expecting it to change. I mean, you get two major arcana cards: card of completion, card of commitment. And you get a card of completion too, but in a different way.
Yeah.
you know. Anything else you want to comment on there before we look at your what do you need to know about it card?
I'm curious if the world is air. Is that an air elemental? I, I'm not.
This is ruled by Saturn, so this one's Earth.
Okay.
This one's ruled by air. This one's Gemini.
Okay. Fair enough.
So you do get 2 Earth cards and 2 dynamic cards.
Yeah.
You know, the air card with the Gemini and the wand card with the 10.
Mm-hmm.
Saturn with the world and the pentacle with your 8 here.
Yeah.
But this just looks all settled. This looks like it's trying to keep its head above water.
Yeah, I would agree with that's how it's. I mean, I've been working with Tiffany on the sort of the transformation, and as we cross into the the lovers and the chariot, it was very much endemic of this pushing and pulling away from what I wanted to do or I needed to do, and
Mm-hmm.
feeling very much like difficult to sort of steer and navigate my own ship, and almost wresting control
Yeah.
away from his antics.
Yeah. Well, the positive thing about this is that I don't get that he's intentionally being manipulative.
Yeah.
I just think that he's totally looking at the relationship from a different avenue than you are.
Yeah.
I don't get intentionally selfish here, but oblivious to your.
Yeah, that would be exactly the reason. I mean, just as a part of a background, I met Tiffany at a games expo here in the UK, and one of the question I asked was very much around this, and it's very clear that this person, it's not out of malice or manipulation. It's just ignorance. It's just oblivious, and it's like.
Yeah.
What I'm working on very hard is just making it very, very clear and direct. So I'd be interested to see what's next.
Mm.
Okay, so let's see what do you need to know about it?
Yeah.
High Priestess. Okay, very interesting. Because this is about just holding tight, holding still.
Yeah.
For right now, High Priestess. The High Priestess, so it isn't about advice about what to do. It's about, okay, what do you need to know about it? And the High Priestess is very, very inactive.
Mm-hmm.
And so the High Priestess indicates that this isn't probably going to change on its own.
Mm-hmm.
The High Priestess takes absolutely no action whatsoever. She just sort of sits between the dark pole and the light pole and holds her wisdom and holds her truth. So this, if you put that one here in between, it's like, well, this could be this way next year.
Mm-hmm.
Without that.
Very interesting.
And as we've seen, he's not going to change it probably.
Yeah.
So,
It
doesn't tell you what to. Yeah, and so it doesn't really tell a person what to do. It just says, okay, here's the polarity. Here's the thing that could stay on this teeter-totter for a long time until somebody gets off the teeter-totter and then the other person flies up into the air.
And the polarity word really strikes me because, what we've got really is like 2 extremes. One that's very aware of, like Dom, who seems to be very aware of the challenging dynamics, and then the other person who seems to be quite oblivious. And and then it's like, actually, just being, even though Dom seems to be aware of that it's coming from an innocent, ignorance kind of place, I think just having the power of the picture and showing what could actually, how we could deal with it and how it could be expressed. And it's just, well, that's the tarot all over, isn't it? That's what really makes it powerful, I think.
Yeah,
Gianna, I was curious, what was the clarifying card you drew after the High Priestess? I couldn't see the graphic itself.
Tower.
Oh, right, okay. So
I thought it was the High Priestess was. Do you mean the last card, Dom,
no,
or the?
so Jan pulled the High Priestess, and I think she pulled the Tower as clarification. I think,
Yeah, I pulled
unless
the
I was mistaken.
clarifier on. No, I pulled the clarifier on these
Oh, right, okay,
because
fair enough. Yeah.
right, right. So
Okay.
essentially, there was a third card on the other person's section because these were very a surprise to me, and I wasn't quite sure what to do with them. So that's why I pulled this one. It's like,
Okay.
okay, it's going to take some dynamite to get this to wake up into a different reality.
Mm.
Thank you very much, Jean, and thank you very much, Dom. I hope
Thank
that's given you some, dynamite in a very
Yeah.
nice way. Because there's also the High Priestess there, which seems like an interesting combination too. Yeah.
Very quiet.
Yes,
No, thank you.
you're welcome. So pull these. I don't know what tarot deck you have, but pull these out in your deck. You might want to, journal about them, or give some thought to, what, delve a little bit more deeply into them and see if you can get any more personal insight from them.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I'm using the Atlantis Tarot mainly because I like water element and I like the Emperor on it, and it seems to be like a story-driven narrative for me. So I think
Okay.
I'm going to look at those and sort of look how
Yep.
they look closer. So, but thank
Yep.
you very much.
Yep.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thanks for participating.
Thank you.
See you soon, Dom.
All
Thanks
right, see you
again.
soon. Bye bye.
Bye. Okay. All right. So I'm trying to get the screen back now. Let's see how that works. Return as an attendee. Maybe that'll do. Ta-da! Like magic. Okay. So actually, we have a question from Dom. We've got a few questions coming in.
Okay.
So Dom asked, would changing the order affect the energy? I know Death stroke Empress wouldn't make much sense. That's interesting in itself. Because, every combination has some meaning. But he's like, would it change the energy if Death came before Empress?
Well, so in his case, if he had the Ten of Wands first, followed by the Eight of Pentacles, that does feel like the old approach isn't working and maybe he needs to try something new. But how they did come up, and then there's like what we saw with the Knight of Cups upside down facing this way, it's the Ten of Wands was the card that was closest to the other person's energy. So I think how they came up did make a difference in how I read them. But, the purpose is mostly to clarify and support the person who's having the reading, to validate their experience, hopefully to give them some clarification about again, back to the point, the relationship dynamics, not really telling anybody what to do, but just say, is this working for you or not? And what, so then maybe follow-up questions might be things like, again, what's my best approach to this situation? What does that person need from me? How do I take care of myself in this position?
Great
Things like that.
And those are things that people could add to their spread is the questions.
Right.
And any questions that really naturally come up for them, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. Right. But it's a very powerful spread and it's very simple and very easy for people to remember. So I'm sure we're all going to have people going off and doing the spreads.
Yeah.
And I invited you to my Facebook group. So if anybody wants to share, would you be happy to maybe pop in and say a little bit, if they do share their readings?
Sure, a little bit.
A little bit. Boundaries are important. Yeah. Okay. Elise says, I am new to tarot. As I learn, I find myself struggling with the ethic boundaries when it comes to reading about another person to a querent. Curious what the experts present have to say on this topic. Okay, you want to go first?
Yeah. Well, I did a recent video about that, and it was, I want to say, tip number 97, 98, something like that. It was fairly recently. So I do have some parameters, and, these are subjective. Everybody's got to come up with their own kind of moral and ethical way that they're going to read cards. But I think it's okay to ask questions about people with whom you're in direct contact. How is my mother doing? How is my daughter doing? When it comes into being nosy, or just because I'm curious, like, what's going on with that neighbor, or whatever, or how's my ex-husband's marriage with his new wife? It's like, no, we don't go there. I call that looking in somebody's underwear drawer. If you would not want somebody to ask that question about you, don't ask it. So there was a whole lot of jumbled thoughts in there, but I think essentially it boils down to being polite and only asking questions about people with whom you have a relationship whose life affects yours.
Mm-hmm.
The way to get around it is to keep it about you, but let's say I want to know about my ex-husband's relationship. I think it's okay to ask, what do I need to know about that?
Brilliant. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's not saying what's going on with them. It's saying, okay, give me a few cards for what I need to know about that. It's two different ways of looking at it and addressing it.
I love that. I totally love that. It's. Have you read Opening to Channel? I spoke about it last week a little bit on the webinar. It's a spiritual classic, but it's about opening yourself up to connect with your guides directly. And actually, the guides won't answer any questions that aren't about you or your higher purpose or what you need to know. So you couldn't ask them, the majority of things that tarot readers get asked. You wouldn't get any answer, because guides don't actually pander to the ego. They don't do that. All they're concerned about is your purpose being expressed here on earth, because actually I think I saw something about it. It's 1 in 4 something stupid billion chances that we are born, so they're really obviously very concerned of, us getting our purpose out there for the highest good. So if you change that question to, what do I need to know for the highest good of this situation? And as you say, keeping it personal, person-centered. And I would just like to add to that I see the tarot as a mirror. So like I read for a couple once, and a few times they didn't come to me together. They used to come to me separately. But one day, this woman, she rang me. I think you call it emergency room tarot. And that's usually what happens when they're ringing. It's like they don't even take the time to book or walk. It's like knee-jerk reaction. And basically she was like, he's going to split up with me. He's going to split up with me. And she was distraught. And I laid the cards out, and there was just not one single card that showed a split. And I was relatively new as a reader then, as a professional reader, and I was like, obviously now I'd be like, well, this just shows that how much you want the split not to happen. But actually this experience had to happen for me to get it, because at the time I was like, well, you're destroyed, but I can't see anything but about a split here. And that's what I said to her. I said, I can't see anything about split, because that's what I was being shown. And the next day her husband came to me and said, I know you read for her yesterday. Can you read for me today? I said, sure. Put them out. And as much as the cards were no split on hers, on his, split. And I was like, oh, I get it. she really doesn't want the split, and you really do. And he said, yes. And of course they split because it takes two to be in a relationship, right? So from that moment on, I really got the message that tarot is a mirror, and that whatever I think comes out is only from our perspective anyway. So that's why it's so important to keep it to our person-centered perspective. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just a couple thoughts, if I can retrieve them from my brain. Sometimes I say to people, and sometimes this comes up around health issues, if somebody's worried about a certain health issue and I get good cards, I say, well, if it's there, I don't see it. The best you can do is respond to what's on the table. You can't try to figure out something else, so, and that's a true, it's not trying to hedge the issue, it's just a true reaction to what's out there. So in the similar case of she's panicked about a split, it's like, well, if it's happening, it's not mine to tell, and maybe it's not yours to hear today. I guess the bottom line for me is, even though I like to be right, and it feels good when you're right, when you're reading cards for people, it's more important to have the conversation that's of use to them in the moment.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so if what I say makes you go and do the exact opposite, and that's in your highest good, then we did our job. Oh, she didn't go it's like, I don't care.
No, no, exactly.
Yeah. So it's a tricky thing, it's really tricky because you don't want to feel like you're just listening to your own voice.
Well, it's like we're in service to spirit, really. And I think we can get confused with that and think we are in service to the person sat in front of us. And we are, but it's just that the person sat in front of us has their own ideas of what they want, which isn't necessarily for their highest good. And actually, part of them is coming for a reading because they know something's not working and they need a different outlook. But, as one of the sayings says, the truth will set you free, but will pee you off first,
Yeah.
So, it's part of being a reader. So, Elise, welcome to your new career, but we hope that was useful for you. And just motoring on with the questions now because we're coming to an end. And Ruth says, could you do this as a spread with both parties present, as in maybe a couple came to see you and this helps them work out a relationship issue? Or would it not be appropriate? Yeah, okay.
No, absolutely. Because it fosters a conversation. At the very least, it fosters a conversation. Two cards. Well, do I see that in you? Do you see that in yourself? Do you see how that impacts me, either positively or negatively? So definitely.
Wonderful. Thank you. Great question. As is Lisa's, which says, does this work only for people or could it be a relationship with a business, for instance?
I think that's a good question. And I think the answer is yes. Let's, with a business, you do readings long enough and eventually you do readings for people's houses and people's pets and, different cities for people. So let's say I want to move to San Francisco. I don't, but let's say I did. I'd pick two cards for my energy in relationship to San Francisco, and I'd pick two cards for San Francisco's relationship to me. Is it going to be kind to me or is it going to be rough on me? And then still pull that, what do I need to know about it? Absolutely. Pets, and anything that's other than you.
I love that. What do you need to know about it? Because that's the most empowering thing, isn't it, of the lot?
No, what should I do? But what do I need to know? What's another piece of information that can help me make the right move for myself? Yeah.
Okay. So we're just going to motor on now. How would you read, I don't know if you can say this quickly, but how would you read the friend's energy differently if the lover's was upright? That's from Nancy.
That didn't feel relevant in that case to me. I guess it was such a strong combination. The World is about integration. The Lovers was about integration. I really wasn't reading that one reversed.
So it was an intuitive feel in the moment of reading. Yeah, which is important. Okay, and Elise is saying, go on.
That's not to say that you couldn't read it reversed. I just didn't. That's all.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Is Dom advantaged by his status in some way in the relationship? For example, is Dom an employer or client? Okay, I don't think we can answer that one, but maybe Dom would. If he's still there and wants to, Elise, I'll hand that over to Dom. And I think that's it for the questions. And can you just repeat the name of your book, please, Jean?
Yep.
That would be amazing.
The main title is simple. The subtitle is a little bit long. So the main title is Tarot Spreads and Layouts.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like this.
Okay. Yep. Got it.
Okay.
Yep.
The subtitle is A User's Manual for Beginning and Intermediate Readers.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jean.
Let me say one thing about the book.
Yes, please.
So all of the examples in here are for specific topics, not kinds of methods. So there's when you have a choice, here's a method. When you have a timing issue, here's a method. Okay, so they're all really simple methods. And the other thing is there are quite a few suggested questions, an idea which was in Mary Greer's Tarot for Yourself book, and I think is so helpful. You know, those follow-up kinds of how can I help the other person? What do they most need from me? How can I help myself? What do I need to be mindful of? All those sort of follow-up ways to address something. There's a lot of that in here as well.
Wonderful. Sounds like a very practical, very useful, very insightful book. And, you know, if we've seen from what you've shown us today, I think we really are getting the value of your type of layouts and spreads coming through. So it's great to know there's a whole book of them. Thank you. And I've got your offer up here, which is 15 Canadian dollars off a relationship clarity reading. That makes it what, 45 Canadian
45, it's US dollars.
Oh, it's US dollars, sorry. US dollars. Okay.
Yeah.
Still,
I'm in
probably about half price. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm not quite sure how that converts for you.
Yeah, it's 25% off.
Okay. All right. So 45 USD dollars. If you click it anyway and click PayPal, it should do the conversion, guys, for you guys in the UK. Yeah. It'll be less than 45, put it that way. And so click the button that says here to get that page open now. So you have the choice, because you can only get this offer on the webinar, and I'm about to remove it after 3. You know my drill. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So that's Jean's offer. And then we've got David's offer here, which is 20% off the Light and Love Tarot Reading Festival in Montreal in September, where Jean and I and David and everybody else that you've seen on the Light and Love Transformational Tarot Summit is going to be. It's going to be an amazing weekend. It's going to be incredible. And as Jean's mentioned a couple of books as well, Jean mentioned Tarot for Yourself and also 78 Degrees of Wisdom. They are like the Bibles of tarot, and they were written by Mary K. Greer, Tarot for Yourself, and 78 Degrees of Wisdom is Rachel Pollock. And as you can see, they are the headlining guests of honor. So you really don't want to miss this. So there's 20% off. Again, you can only get it on the webinar. Click it and let the page be open at least, because after 3 it's going to go 1, 2, 3, and then finally Oh, I've clicked the wrong button. Typical. Okay, finally is drum roll. I have one of these offers left, which is if you buy a solo room at my retreat in Montreal the very next weekend. It's actually in, I can't say the word, the Laurentides is the English way of saying, making the balls up of a French word, I think, basically. But it's where there's lots of pines and lakes and mountains and nature, and there we're going to just be held for the weekend and work with the land and work with our own transformational process inside, and also get a tarot diploma that's accredited, at least in the UK, and you would have to check it in your country. But there's only one of those left. If you get the solo room, you get your ticket to the Light and Love Tarot Reading Festival for free. So if you want to do both, click this one. Okay, so, oh, I haven't published it. It's typical, isn't it? Publish everyone else's. There we go. So after 3, it's going to go now. So you're going to have to click this one very quick. It's only up very quickly. 1, 2, 3. There we go. I've got a request to speak from someone. David, do you want to say something? Just going to bring David on quickly. Well, maybe not. It might take him a little while to get in, but it looked like he wanted to say something. Okay. Oh, you get an error when you click on Jean's offer. Oh dear me, I'm very sorry about that. So we need to get the link up for people. David, do you have the link there for Jean's offer?
Hi everyone. No, I don't have her link.
Okay.
The link that we shared, it wasn't working. There's an error on the page.
Okay. Thank you for letting me know. I'm going to send it out to everybody via email.
Perfect.
And, if you don't get it, if you're still here and you haven't had it and you don't get it because our system's messed up because it's been Mercury retrograde, just email me, please. If there's anything you don't get that you should have, just email me, and don't feel like I've forgotten you. It's just I can't rely on the system's accuracy, so please do ask for it. But yes, you get replays and everything sent out by the end of the day, so I'll get back to you on Monday if you send an email saying you haven't got it, and it will be sent out to you then. Okay, so thank you for letting us know that. Very sorry, my apologies, Jean and everyone, but I will make sure that everybody gets it. Okay, and thank you so much for being here and sharing your amazing knowledge and sharing with us your book as well, which seems awesome. And I'll put the title of the book in the email as well. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in Montreal in September. Thank you very much.
See you next month. Okay, thanks,
people
Tiffany.
Saying they loved it, and so
good, I'm glad. Good.
Thank you for being here, everyone.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks, David, too. Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.